Hey, it's Theo and thank you for joining me, and today we are looking at the best decks from the Lost City of Un'Goro. Now, it launched a few days ago and yeah, most quests didn't really work out, but there's still a few new decks that you can use to climb to Legend with. As always, I have at least one deck for every class and the codes will be in the description. Now let's get started with the very first deck, which looks like to be the best deck, and it's this Aggro Hunter. And yeah, it's a bit like it was before, but it's got a few new cards. First of all, we got the Infestation that yeah, looks a bit like a Quest Demon Hunter card, but you can actually use it in this deck because yeah, it's still just 4 damage. It can control the board early, just a good tool overall for an aggro deck. Same with the Insect Claw, kind of the same thing as the Infestation, right? Those cards are kind of meant for the Quest Demon Hunter, but they work really well in an aggro deck, and the rest is just kind of standard. We've got the Living Flame even now, to draw the odd calls, to have some AoE against the other aggro decks that are around, and just a whole lot of damage to win the game real fast. And as the second deck, we have another aggro deck. This is the Menagerie Priest, and yeah, this was also already popular in the previous patches, but now it got even better with the Resuscitate, which lets you res 1, 2, 3 cost and get you some very sticky minions with Reborn, especially if you get like a Death Rattle, like that Workhorse. It's really hard to clear the board, and then you can of course punish the opponent with a Menagerie Drug when they inevitably don't clear your board. Also, another new card we have is the Archiles, and yeah, this can win the game. As happened to me where I was setting up a board clear, they play this card and suddenly all the minions are out of range, so this one is really powerful to push the advantage and make your board unclearable, and yeah, the rest is just as usual. And as the third deck, we have another aggro deck, and yeah, that's because the aggro decks counter the two most popular decks in Warlock Paladin and Loh Druid, which we'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, this is a Menagerie Death Knight, again another deck we've seen before, another strong deck from before. And this deck also got an upgrade compared to before, but not as much. All it got was the Blob Avatar, which already kind of was in the game before the expansion. But yeah, other than that, yeah, just the usual with the Frost DK. Lots of good early game, especially Mosquito is insane if you get a board and the opponent doesn't clear it. And then, yeah, just tons of damage. I mean, this location is already 30 damage if you have both copies, the Weapon Manipulator, and then, of course, the Menagerie Jug to push the advantage. And then we have arrived at, well, the I'd say the villain of the set. It's the Quest Paladin. And yeah, this looked insane day one because, of course, yeah, these kind of decks, right? They always look insane day one. The aggro decks, they always punish the slow and unrefined decks. And yeah, it was pretty easy to refine Paladin, Warlock Paladin. It's not the hardest deck to build or to play, but it's fallen a bit off in win rate, but still very good to climb with. And yeah, as the name says, it's Warlock Paladin, right? I mean, you play the quest, you play Murlocs, and you usually win the game, and not much more else to say about it. And then the other big new deck from this expansion is Loh Druid, and of course that's because of Loh the Living Legend, and I'm sure you've already seen it if you've played. Is yeah, Loh comes down like turn 3, 4, 5 usually, and yeah, then they drop a Ceaseless with it, clear the board, maybe some Playhouse Giants too, and then sometimes they even have extra health, making them even harder to clear. And then, yeah, you somehow have to deal with a huge board with these minions while your board got cleared on turn 5. I mean, that's very difficult. On top of that, then they drop a Fire Rack for 5 mana, Zilix for 5 mana, Carriers for 5 mana, and that just makes this deck so strong. Just all these huge threats very early on, and yeah, most decks just can't handle that when it works out. Just, yeah, if you play this deck, you just hope you draw Loh the Living Legend though, because yeah, without it, this deck doesn't really function very well. Then another new deck we have is the OTK Wilted Priest with the Wilted Shadow. And this one is just your typical OTK deck, right? You try and survive, try and set up your OTK, and then you win with Wilted Shadow, hitting the opponent's face multiple times, and yeah, there's not really any other way to win. Now this deck is also running the new Resuscitate, and it is very powerful in this deck. It's kind of needed as well, because you want this Careless Crafter coming back multiple times, right, so you get those bandages, so then in the end you can play the Wilted Shadow. You could kill with it sometimes, but often it kind of just dies, so then you can res it twice with the Rest in Peace, and then yeah, every card of the Careless Craft, every bandage basically deals 11 damage if you res it twice, and yeah, then usually 3 bandages is enough. And if there's some armor, yeah, then you can always get more bandages with that Resuscitate. Also, it's running Sleepy Resident because, yeah, all you want to do, right, is stall, as well as with the other taunts you've got, Annoyatron, Tars, Slime, just very annoying cards to deal with, especially when they get that reborn of the Resuscitate. And then we have yet another Priest deck. Yeah, I guess Priest is doing kind of well, although I feel like most Priest players kind of want the slower decks to do well. But another deck here is the Protoss Priest, and it's just doing really well as well. It's also using the Resuscitate, again, just really strong in any deck. It makes such a sticky board. It's really hard to deal with these minions then after it comes down Resuscitate. And this deck is resurrecting cards like Void Ray, Sentry, and Catch of the Day. And yeah, those cards is really good to get back, especially, right, like a Sentry to cheat more mana, or a Void Ray, just Divine Shield Rush, really strong with that Reborn. And then, yeah, you can play a little bit aggressive right in early game, but then late game, of course, you can just drop that Mothership, get some huge Protoss minions, which probably don't cost a lot because you get the sentries back multiple times. And then you can do it again with the Umbra to get another full hand of these Protoss cards, or reduce them even more because you proc the sentry, and then you usually get a couple of Archons, and that usually is enough to finish the game. Then the second Death Knight we have here is a Starship Death Knight, and yeah, this one looks pretty similar, I'd say, though there's a few differences compared to last meta. First of all, we got at least a Navigator, so this is a pretty big new card, and yeah, you can craft location, and then you can get something like copy a Starship piece, right, which is really strong, or just get armor, what you need, or just get some rushers to stay ahead on board, whatever you need. You can get with Lace. That also means that we're running some other cards to be able to enable this, right? We're running cards like Maladar and Shaladosil to be able to play that Lace. And also one other card we're playing is Silk Stitching. I'm still not convinced about it, but yeah, this card is being played in the Starship Death Knight, and you can also proc it with Guiding Figure, don't forget about it. Could be a nice combo if you get a great spell with it. And other than that, yeah, just standard Starship Death Knight, right? Build your big starship. And then, yeah, usually you win the game because there aren't too many board clears right now in the standard. And then the rogue deck we have is the Cycle Rogue yet again. And yeah, it pretty much does the same thing as before. Yeah, it's got a new card in it with Cultist Map. Just another draw card added on top of it that's really strong. Just, yeah, just get your win con even faster, get your giants even faster, and then yeah, game's over pretty fast. And then if the giants aren't good enough, you can of course have the Incendias and the Maulers combined with Thanos to deal a ton of damage. Then we have an Aggro Hunter deck. Now, this deck doesn't have the highest sample size that I would like, but it shows some promise, and I didn't want to just put the same old hand buff Hunter in this list because, yeah, everybody knows that now, and yeah, it's still the same as before, it still works. But this one, yeah, just a good old Aggro Hunter. Try to fill the board with some of these small tokens, right? Then you can buff them with Raptor, or with the Canvassar, or with the Supreme Dynamancy. Also, we got Esho to buff all these beasts, and yeah, these small beasts after like Esho and Supreme Dynamancy, they're not so small anymore. They actually get pretty threatening each one, and also of course these also buff the board, so yeah, it's like immediate pressure, and then all the other turns are great as well after that. And just like with the Beast Hunter, we have this Elemental Mage. Again, you can play Protoss Mage as well, it's still fine. But yeah, this one is kind of a new deck. Of course, we had like Elemental Mage before, but then with the rotation, a lot of important cards rotated. But yeah, just like the previous deck, the sample size of this deck isn't too high, but it's showing some promise. So that's why I wanted to highlight it. Also because it's extremely cheap to play. Sarun is the only legendary, but I don't think you even need it. And yeah, just again, an Elemental deck. So you want to play Elementals every single turn. And then you also run the fire spells because, yeah, elementals plus fire spells really work well together because a card like the Blazing Aggression and all the synergies the fire spells have with the elementals. And yeah, you just want to get on board fast, and then you have a ton of burst with this deck. And then we have a second Druid deck. This is the Spell Damage Druid, although you can see a few familiar cards in this list because we have Loh the Living Legend again. Because, yeah, the card is pretty good because you get to play your Ceaseless for 0. And yeah, the weakness of this kind of deck, right, the Spell Damage Druid, is kind of that you fall behind on board and just die. And with Loh, you get to play 0 mana Ceaseless, a 5 mana Zilliax to stay alive, and then also you get to make a 5 mana Alonius, which makes it even easier to OTK. So yeah, this deck got a big upgrade with the new expansion. Also, it's running a Lace, so yeah, I think you usually want to go for the 1 mana location with this and try and hit the spell damage. So you basically have a 1 mana Magical Dollhouse again. And then also you can get the copy card, and if you copy Aulonius, it's very hard to not have a lethal with all the spell damage you get with that combination. And then we have the second quest deck. I don't know, quest decks, they're extremely good, this set, so good I had to put 2 of these quests in here out of the 11. But yeah, this one, Enter the Lost City, it's one of the better quests. I think that's because, yeah, unlike most of the other quests, you don't actually have to make your deck worse to be able to do it. You can just play kind of the old hydration warrior, and not only you get this quest with it, you also have now the new Elise as well, and yeah, it's also very good in this list. It's really good in a lot of these slower decks. And yeah, it's great because you want to usually, I think, go for a 5-mana location and then get something like Copy or a Rush, right? Keep control of the board, to armor, discover a spell, all of them are quite good. And if you get that copy, you can copy the Zilliax, and yeah, that makes it really hard for the opponent to kill you. And other than that, yeah, the deck has a really strong late game, right? You got 2 of those hydration stations to survive, you got the Marin, and then yeah, those quests, it's really just late game. You kind of always win with Enter the Lost City because having Time Warp plus Galvadon, yeah, that's usually 30 plus damage in a single turn, and yeah, I think that should win most matches. And then we have a Shaman deck, and as usual, it's the Nebula Shaman because yeah, there's kind of just nothing else really for Shaman quest. It's probably got like half the win rate of this deck. So I would suggest playing that. Yeah, this one a little bit has changed. This deck has the Flight of the Firehawk. I mean, just more tutoring for your minions, so you're even more likely to have the Murmur on curve with a bunch of good stuff. And other than that, yeah, the rest kind of stayed the same. We got the Ice Crown Brochure, so yeah, you can stay alive. And yeah, the rest just a bunch of late game stuff, as you probably know by now, that you can cheat out with that Murmur. And then the last deck we have is a Warlock deck. Now, I thought there wasn't going to be any good Warlock decks, but I found this deck, which actually had a positive win rate, believe it or not. And yeah, this one, I don't know what to call it. That's why I have question marks here. I don't really know what name this deck will have. But yeah, this one, it looks a bit weird, but the idea behind this, right, is that you have the Dorian, and then you can use cards like Cursed Catacombs to search for minions. And it's also the first time agGubEG sees play. So what you can do, for example, with Dorian is you play Dorian, you go with the Cursed Catacombs, and then you hit agGubEG, and then you can play 1-mana agGubEG to get the 10-mana agGubEG, and then you can maybe get the 9-mana card. And then you just dealt 19 face damage, you know, played Fire, potentially deals more damage, and win the game. Outside of that, it also has a lot of the early game control tools, like we saw in the last meta with like the Ultralisk Cavern and the Eternal Laver. We got some healing of Consume, and yeah, some more damage in the late game, like even Kerrigan, the Shalada Soul. So yeah, you can actually win the game if somehow you don't get the Cursed Catacombs into the Fire agGubEG. So yeah, it looks like a really weird deck, but it seems to be working. So yeah, if you want to play Warlock and you have these cards, this might be a deck for you. And these are all the decks I've got for you today. So 50 next you can play to climb to Legend. I think tomorrow I'll probably have a crafting guide for this expansion. So look out for that. If this video was helpful, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and until next time.